I call the Thursday, August 28th, 2025 meeting of the Charter Revision Commission to order. The first order of business is to approve the minutes of the August 14th, 2025 meeting. Maya moves that we approve the minutes. Does anyone have any comments or questions? I read them and found them to be really good. All right, so all those in favor of approving the minutes of the August 14th, 2025 meeting, please say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Okay. Do we have any need to modify the agenda?
I would move that we modify the agenda.
How'd you like to modify the agenda?
I would like to move item 1 under new business to the first item we discussed.
Okay. Does anyone have any objection to doing that? And I can explain why I agree with Maya if anyone wants to know why. I think we definitely need to walk through this and get this done. But our timing of getting where we're going to go, I think, is going to be different based on the conversation that I think we need to have by moving this select board presentation, memo, and PowerPoint conversation first. Is that okay with everybody?
Okay.
Okay. So I'll give you an update. There's we went to the select board on July 9th. At that point, our proposal to them was we're coming back to you on September 9th, which we're still going to do. And say, we want you to put this on the ballot for November 4th, or things. What we found out at that meeting was there was a petition being circulated to put Australian ballot charter amendment on. Subsequent to that announcement at that meeting that there's going to be this Australian ballot petition, the petition has now been filed because it has the number of signatures. Yeah, it's been certified. Since then, there's now a petition circulating for open town meeting. That was started circulating like last week, or I think it was last week. 2 weeks. And you lose like track of time. So that's out there circulating. So for me, for us to go to the select board and say, hey, we want you to put our thing on November 9th. When there's these other 2 things happening, which have to be in the mix somehow, is premature for us. I do think we have to, get through tonight, go through this charter. I think that we can't finish this tonight. I think there's some things that Hillary brought up that I think we have to go through. I'm not saying we're going to do an overhaul of the charter, but I think we have to sort of discuss what we do, what we ask the select board for, or what we sort of tell the select board we are going to do, and what we're asking them to do, if anything, at this point. Because there are those 2 open questions that, we have been really clear that we are recommending open town meeting. We've also been very clear that our charter has dozens and dozens, as you can see by the green and red, dozens other changes, whatever the word is, changes. So to me, I think we need to really sort of figure out where are we moving forward here. I don't want, this is me personally speaking, that's what I'm saying, and everybody can weigh in and disagree with me. I don't want to say on September 9th, hey, everybody, hey, select board, we're done. Here's our charter. We're walking away. I also don't want us to sort of cede, well, here's our charter, have the vote between these other 2 things, and then plop that thing in. You know what I mean? I think that we are a standalone document, but there is this other activity out there that may, because of the way things happen, 2 things could turn out the town could vote for two things. The town could vote for Australian ballot and the town could vote for open town meeting. So we're kind of in this, we have our document, we don't know what's happening around us. I prefer, personally, for me, is that we move forward, but we don't hand our document off to the select board yet until we understand, what the process is with these other things that are going on. That's just like the Reader's Digest version of what I'm thinking. I have a lot more thoughts, but I'll stop there and let other people sort of mull on that. Or
It's my understanding that the Australian ballot petition can't go on the November ballot.
Hannah can fill us in on that too.
I believe because there's not sufficient time
Right.
for hearings. Is that true?
So under the statutory framework for a charter amendment by petition, they have to have I forget if it's called a hearing, a meeting, whatever it is, 30 days before the vote. And that has to be warned as meeting with the 30 to 45 days or 30 to 40 days in advance of that meeting, which would be September 4th. And the select board's not meeting again before then. So that charter petition can't go on in November, and the language also, it's not super clear whether or not that could even go on a special meeting or if it has to go on at the next regularly scheduled meeting. So there's no likelihood that the charter petitions are going to, get out in front of us for November, so to speak, because there's not sufficient time to warn it as required by the law. And there's something else I was going to say, but I've lost it.
Why?
So I think kind of in line with that information that you might be able to provide, Hannah, is it the path that the Australian ballot petition took, it has to be taken up as an action by the select board, correct? It's not.
No.
Okay. The select board can choose.
Select board cannot make any alterations to their petition.
So but the petition is on a path that cannot be altered at this point.
Right.
Okay.
it doesn't have to go, it's not going to the only thing that's happening is the select board has a hearing, but basically they just are officiating a hearing on the petition.
And because the petition has been satisfied, it is continuing along its path of a hearing and then a vote at some point, whether it's 30, 40 days after the hearing or March.
Yes.
But it's continuing on a path.
That's right. And when, I think, because I think the Australian ballot or the open town meeting one seems to be
Gathering steam.
Gathering steam. That's going to be the same thing. It'll take the same path because they're doing it the same way, which means, there'll be a hearing and
a question. So because of, again, the path they've chosen, the question is as they petitioned, so it can't be sort of like, put beside each other.
They have to appear as they petitioned as separate articles. So it can't be an either or, it can't be one or the other. And they can't make any corrections other than technical corrections to it.
But the owner, the submitter of each petition still has rights over them to pull.
I don't know that they can withdraw it once it's been submitted
Yeah.
because all these people signed on to it.
yeah.
Just checking out like some of the processing, because I'm not even sure the select board would be able to answer these questions on September 9th per se, because it is out of their hands.
Well, I think the thing we don't know, and this is why ultimately it has to go on a ballot. And of course, what Hannah says is it will, is it state law, I believe, or is it charter or whatever, says that it has to go on the next meeting, which is the March election. That doesn't mean the select board can't say, oh, we're going to pick a new date. You know, I mean, we don't know that.
It might mean that.
Yeah. And I think there was an idea floating out there that perhaps one of these amendments could get on November 4th, but the timing is such that it can't.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean, I mean, we made up the November 4th date.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, that's just some random date we pulled out. That doesn't mean something else isn't happening. There isn't talk about something else. So it's really the select board that gets to decide the dates and when all of this stuff is going to happen. Our work. They get to decide our work, and in theory, they can call a special election for like December X and put. Whatever.
I don't think you're correct on that.
They don't think so.
It says it shall go on for the next
Okay.
regularly scheduled election.
Okay, so maybe I'm wrong about that. It's kind of been described to me like 500 different ways. This is why this is really confusing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I don't know that we should be saying we want our thing on November 4th. Because there's so many unknowns to this at this point that and I'm not saying this because I don't think that our thing can stand on its own. I actually think it can stand on its own. But if it's going to get caught up, if it's going to make it incredibly confusing for the voters of this town on the way things are, we have to, I think.
But I mean, a
wonder about that.
scenario of that would be if we continue along our drafted timeline to present and have information sessions and go on with a November question, these other petitions would not be addressed until March. And there's the potential that if the voters approve, rescind RTM and approve the charter, that it's in motion in Montpelier in January.
That was our hope. And that was why we had proposed it the way we did. The issue is that this petition has generated a lot of publicity and there's a lot of attention about it. And it's going to be incredibly confusing for the voters to show up in November when even some of the editorials that went on about it said, vote this way in November. If they go to the ballot and there's a thing that says, should we do open town meeting, essentially? And so the whole charter, a lot more than that, but that's what it boils down to. And then be like, wait, no, I thought we were voting on whether or not to do Australian ballot. And then there's a chance that ours just gets voted down out of confusion.
Yeah. And do you want to say something?
Yeah, I would like to say something. I'm worried about the confusion. Also, I've been getting worried about the confusion. And I think it's important to note that we chose the path we're on before any of the other stuff began to happen. And I appreciate the way you framed opening this conversation tonight, Kate, when you said you thought it was premature. I think I think it would be best for us not to try to solve this puzzle tonight or ourselves, but I think it's premature for us to declare that we want to stay on the path that we were on because there are these petitions that are going to have their statutory right to be in front of the voters, and they're about, one of the most fundamental things that we've addressed. And so it feels to me like at least we want to follow the path of you providing an update to the board on September 9th without an ask that we be scheduled for November 4th. And we see what the select board is discussing, perhaps deciding if they have the authority even to decide. I mean, there'll be the select board inevitably is going to be discussing our update in the context of knowing that there's one petition, maybe by then both, but the other one, is actively underway. There'll likely be these two competing things that are going to be before the voters. I think we'd be well served after all that we've invested in the more complex task of looking at the whole charter to provide your appearance as an update and see how this starts to sort out for how it's going to go in front of the voters before we come back as a commission to say, here's how we'd like to be presented.
Yeah, and the select board at this point, but again, every day, everything gets changed. You know, in their mind right now, but they haven't met, is the whole, we're going to meet on the 9th and hear from you folks, and then we're going to come back and we're going to meet on the 24th at the regular meeting and discuss it again. And then tentatively October 3rd, warn something. But that could all go, I think we're going to know more. We might know a little bit more on this September 9th than we know now.
I was going to ask, what is the information that's needed to feel like we know more?
I think we have to hear a conversation about what the select board is themselves are thinking. I think it's been summertime and they haven't met since the first Tuesday in August. The first time they're going to meet is September 9th. They haven't met since maybe they met since, I don't know if they have met since the petition was actually certified, the first one. They definitely haven't met since the second one was taken out. You know what I mean? Everything in the last, for July 9th, when we were there, the last time they talked about it, has like everything has changed. And it's literally just changing, you know, by the second. So that's why I think if we go in and say, hey, we want to be on November 9th, I think it is premature for us to know that it's the right thing for us to be on November 9th.
I would also note that depending on what sort of shakes out here, there's a possibility that we could get this before a special open town meeting under the alternative provision in our charter if RTM were discontinued at some point before we present it. And then that would allow us to put out exactly what we've presented without any alterations or input from the select board, which I'm certainly not opposed to, but we have put a lot of work into this. We've been on this committee longer than most of them have been on the select board. And I think we would be selling ourselves short to not keep that possibility open to be able to present it as we want it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we would present it to a special.
We would go
RTM?
under subsection D. No, if RTM were discontinued, it would go to a special open town meeting.
Which is how the charters in the past
But
gone. Yeah.
but when would RTM be discontinued?
I don't know, but that's what I'm saying is if there were a possibility that happened before we had the select board adopt our charter.
But if RTM isn't discontinued,
That's a separate issue from our charter. The RTM discontinuance is not.
no, I'm just saying, if from a time point of view, let's say RTM is not discontinued, we could ask for a special RTM.
We could do that. And there's also, I was talking to Hillary about things, you know, there's also an election in August of next year. There's election in November of next year. I think we have to sort of not pick the date now or the mechanism now for how we get our thing through, but sort of think about it as, you know, we've got it, what's going to happen over the month of September, you know what I mean? And shake it out that way. And not go in there and say, hey, I think this is where we'll get to, and we can get to this now, or we can go back to the charter. We can decide when we talk about the presentation to the board itself is, you know, what is it? I'm a firm believer that we should give them a copy of this plus the clean version with a memo on top saying, this is where we are to date. Because I think there might be a couple of tweaks that we're going to want to make after tonight. And then I want to propose that we have another meeting in September after the September 9th meeting where we can talk again and say, you know, we're here to tell you where we are, update you where we are, so you know where we are to date. We're not asking to be on the ballot on November 4th right now. You know, we're not asking that.
And we're not done.
We're not done. We're keeping our charter and we'll be back and, you know, and do it that way. And you know, that's where I see us going with my glasses on, but, and we can talk more specifics about exactly what we say, but that would be sort of the recommendation that, and I really think it has to be the select board that takes the lead on the timing of all of this stuff, because ultimately, at least where ours is concerned, they have to decide when it's going to go on the ballot. We can make a suggestion and we can say, hey, wait a second, blah, blah, blah. But I think they have to have that conversation, and they haven't had any conversation about these two other things that have been swirling over the last couple of weeks. And we can still have cupcakes, Joy.
That's consolation prize.
I think you're right about how to appear on September 9th. I like the idea of having another meeting subsequent to that, so we can know what we know at that point that we don't know tonight and can't know tonight, and give some additional thought to moving forward. And I like the idea that it's, we're not finished. We think it's premature to declare next steps with our finished product that doesn't exist yet, because of how complex the landscape around us has become. So without declaring that we intend to decide something particular at the next meeting, or without declaring that, if this happens, we'll do that, I think it's good for us just to recognize that there's things are substantively different in ways that will impact our work inevitably one way or the other. And so we view September 9th as an update. We learn more. We come back together. Maybe when we come back together, we decide what path we want to be on. Maybe then we decide still to sit tight and see what comes. I don't know. I think it's good for us not to be overly specific about things that we can't know. We don't know and we can't know right now.
And, we might find something out that at the September 24th meeting, we may be ready to say more.
Right.
After September 9th, and we might be in the same boat that we are now. I think that, depending, it's really, because I have not talked to any members of the select board to know what anybody is thinking. Again, it's summertime, and I think everybody's kind of haven't gotten refocused. But so I don't, I think we have to, that's not to say we don't get this thing.
Do you want a motion, or are we looking to just kind of just see if we're all comfortable with the way you've described
Are
it?
we comfortable with the way it described it?
I'm uncomfortable with the fact that you keep saying we're not finished, because I thought
We're almost finished. There's a couple I want to talk about the Hillary stuff. Because did you see the email that I sent around?
Yeah, I feel like we've addressed those issues, but we can discuss it again.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't want to tell them we're finished.
Yeah. Yeah. We need to, I think if we can walk through this, and talk about the Hillary's comments, and I don't want to present them with something going, we're done, here you go. Because I think it's still important that we maintain.
I agree we shouldn't hand it off, but I don't like saying we're not.
Right.
I just I feel like we've worked so hard to get to this.
Oh, no,
I'd like to speak to that. So I 100% agree with that. And what I see is not that we couldn't have been finished, right? We set ourselves on a course months ago and then really recommitted to it in July, and we followed that course, and we're here on August 28th like we planned to be, in a place where I think we've done this. We've done the long haul of the 2.5 years worth of thorough work. We've done the intense burst this summer of getting the things addressed that were the loose ends. And in the meantime, over these last, 6 to 10 weeks, whatever it's been, but basically, from since the earlier middle part of the summer to now, have found that the context within which the community would be considering our recommendations is entirely changed, substantively changed in ways that I worry could impact people's ability to see what we're bringing forward as a whole, because of the very particular, super important, one could argue most important component pieces of the whole that are in active debate. And so I think it's best for us on this question of whether we're finished or not to declare ourselves finished, because as we sit tight, if we decide to sit tight, I think we should, as we sit tight and we watch the next steps happen, the select board and perhaps others. I mean, if the statutory obligation to wait until March is still being assessed, then it may be beyond the select board's control as well in terms of what happens next with the petitions. But it sounds like you're not completely certain about that. It appears that way, but we're not completely certain.
I'm just,
So
that's not like official legal advice, but that is the
Okay.
way that I am interpreting
Right.
that statute.
So I hear that and I appreciate that. And it feels to me like that's another thing that is, some of these pieces are like 50-50 and some of these pieces might be like 95-5. But there's a lot that's unsettled, including that question has not been definitively addressed. The select board hasn't been presented with that information and accepted it as the way they must proceed, hands off, it goes to March. So with all of those things swirling, it feels to me like being nearly finished, but not quite finished, not ready to present and propose a path for our body of work is where we belong, because not only in the part of that gives us the chance to find out what gets discussed on September 9th, but on September 9th, or perhaps subsequent to that, there may be things that come out of what is swirling that cause us to, think about aspects of this. I don't know what those might be, but that's kind of the whole point, is we don't know what those might be. And so it just feels proper to me that Kate's update would be, we're this close. We've done all this work. We've gotten to this place where, this is the status of our document. And you can see the changes are extensive that we're proposing. And we believe we've done a really thorough job. And we're not ready yet to propose that it be presented for a vote. We're going to be seeing how these other pieces move forward so that we can make a recommendation in that context rather than in the uncertainty. That feels to me like the best place for us to be.
I totally get what you're saying too, Hannah, because I don't want us to sit there and think, oh, we're going to be meeting every Thursday and we're going to be going through this 5,000 times. You know what I mean? It's more of I feel it's more in the, we're not
ready to present this.
That's right. It's more like we're not ready to present it yet. It's still ours. We're not asking you as a select board to do anything with it right now.
Right.
You know what I mean? We're keeping it. We're going to be ready to go when we know when the vote is, because we are ready to go, but I don't think we want to give it to them yet.
Is there any place still, though, for October information meetings to still
I think if we
explain to the public this will eventually be coming?
I think, and I'm saying this as somebody who, for like the last week, has not been able to walk down the street without getting stopped. Because of the activity with the Australian ballot, and now that we have the open town meeting petition out there and people are becoming aware of it, it's really confusing just to get people to understand there's two petitions and then have them, have to say, well, wait, what are you guys doing? I think us having public meetings is going to be way confusing until there's I think when the select board makes a decision, says, okay, here are the dates that these things are going to be on the ballot, then I think we'll be in a better position to know when we do our public hearings. Because I think doing it now, when some of this stuff might not even go on a ballot until March, is going to be so out of
Yeah.
whack for people. And I'm just saying this based on, and I've had like really smart people who totally pay attention to town government who are confused by it. And I realized when I was talking to Hillary the other day, going, oh my God, we've been doing this for 2.5 years. And I have to repeat it to myself like 10 times, all like the different things. So it's almost like I think we'll get a better, we'll have people who are more understanding why they're listening to us talk about what we're talking about when there's context around it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because I was with you, like, oh, we need to do all of our stuff. I was all into it until like last week when I realized, wait a second, like after our last meeting, between our last meeting and this meeting, so much stuff has happened that it's kind of, I just think if we do it, we're going to get more questions about open town meeting and Australian ballot and what is that and why is that on the ballot? Why isn't it on until March than we are about our charter? That's and that it, you know, because I've been sitting like preparing, like, okay, here's all the documents we should get ready for November. And now it's like, okay, I've sort of resigned myself to, I think if we do info, unless the select board tells us, hey guys, we want to put your thing on in November, then we make a calculate, you know, then we'll be ready. We have to do it.
Well, and
But-
we'll have, if we have a meeting in September, we'd have the opportunity to have heard that request from the select
Right.
board and have some discussion about it ourselves without having to be speculating.
Right.
I would just, I don't want to get into it too much because there's a lot of uncertainty, but if the petitions are not going on until March, I don't think our charter should go before that because then that looks like a superseding vote that undermines what we've done as opposed to having competing charter amendments before the legislature. But it looks like the town voted to undo what we did basically.
Right.
And
I
so
see.
I don't think that we should be pushing to get ours on before the petitions.
And I don't disagree with you, but I think that's something we should discuss when we actually know what's happening with the petitions. That's the thing that I want. There's that scenario. There's also multiple other ways in which the thing could play out. And I'm worried about us speculating about this way or that way or the other way and what we like or we don't like about different paths when most of the rest of it beyond our body of work is beyond our control. So it feels important to me that we wait for some of that to play out enough that we understand what's happening with it. Maybe it's going to March. Maybe there's something else that's happening sooner. We just don't know right now.
Regardless, I don't think we should do anything that will make it look like those petitions are undercutting the work we've done.
Yeah,
I'm concerned about that too, both the appearance that you described and the actual confusion factor and the way in which this might not get a fair hearing. This broader body of work might not get a fair hearing because there's going to be so much attention on the other two questions.
Yeah. And I also, and I don't want to speculate, but I agree with what you're saying, Hannah. And I also want to make sure though, that our charter gets a fair hearing and that we have two petitions out there. One of them is already been certified. The other one hasn't. And the other one that hasn't been certified yet, or even, you know, they haven't reached the signatures yet, that is catching on fire, that's advocating for open town meeting, which was what we're advocating for. So I want to make sure, just on a personal basis, because we've been for 2.5 years doing this, is that our charter goes up at a timely fashion so that just because one petition has been certified, that's not the only thing going up either, you know? I mean, I think, but again, we can't speculate. But everything needs to be measured against, even though it's not a and or, it's a want this.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't, again, we can't know any of this until we hear, we'll get a little snippet of it probably on September 9th.
And so for the memo and then presentation or PowerPoint possibly to the select board, then the words will be to the effect that this is still ours and we understand that they need to have some time to look it over as well, to see it in context, and they'll probably have 2 readings, the 9th and the 24th. And that It's just an update.
Yes, that would be, and I have my little notes on this, that would be like my recommendation.
So is there even, I'm cautious about needing a PowerPoint
Right.
for a first reading.
Right.
I'm thinking a memo
Yeah.
is enough to, again, summarize a bit of the work before, like very similar to probably the July memo.
And that's what I was thinking, Joy, and even making it even shorter than the July memo.
Right.
And basically giving them the tracked version and the clean version. And then describing our public process, like we had 42 meetings and blah, 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 blah. And I just pressed this out. This is just my notes. And again, I just did this morning because I was sitting at home, or sitting in my office. Make it really, and I just, don't read moving forward yet. But literally doing the track changes in the clean version, and then just saying what our process was. You know, we had all these public meetings, making it really clear that we worked really hard for the last 2 years doing public stuff. You know what I mean? And I did that in that last memo. So I basically take it,
Maybe some
Update it.
updating based on reactions, but yes.
update it. And then we do the moving forward, and these are just totally made up. So don't even, this is, it was my stream of consciousness, but talk about how we have the two charters now. I mean, the one petition that's been filed and certified, the other that hasn't, and basically just say what you said. You know, that we want to keep it. And again, this language is
Or
just
even
made.
just their language of, this is your first reading. We know you will be getting back together this will be on the agenda for another meeting. And we would be available to speak to questions after the second reading and leave it in that zone still of, it's not yours. You're looking at it, you're reading it. This is
One of the things we got to be careful about is how much when we're saying this is your first time looking at it, let us know what you think.
I think
Because-
we want to just say we're not finished yet.
Yeah.
We are nearly finished with our work, and we will finish our work and bring it forward for a vote when we have a better understanding of what's going to happen with these other two pieces that are so integrally connected to our broader body of work.
And it's because I don't want them to think we're giving it to them and then they're going to tell us, we want you to take this out and that out and pop it in. You know what I mean? And in the context of the select board, when they do a reading of something, that's what they do. They get to change it and stuff. So we don't want them to think like, oh, this is the second reading of the ordinance and you guys get to do whatever you want. So it's like, we're showing you where we are to date. We're almost done. You know, we've got some more things that we're looking at tweaking or whatever we want to use the language. We're going to be waiting. And I think to me, it's the message has got to be, we're going to be waiting to hear from you folks on how you're going to handle these other two things, because I don't think it should be on us to solve the problem. We're just Charter Revision Commission. Our job is to look through the charter, make recommendations.
I also think we should make it clear that we're not just deferring to what they decide to do. We're going to see what's playing out with everything else, and then we will come back with a request on how we would like ours to go.
That's been trying to say.
Yeah.
Those are better, but as a better phrasing of it, exactly that. Like,
Yes.
So I don't want
We're not
to make it seem like
asking
we'll
for-
just wait until you
Right.
let us know when it's time to go, because like I said, there might be a possibility that we don't need to go through this.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You hit it right on the.
We'll be bringing the body of work forward and making a request for what happens next once we understand the context in which we would be making that ask. Right now, the context is completely up in the air.
That's the key. That's the sentence that you said it perfectly. I was struggling with all day on my typewriter. That's why I only have these bullets. Because we don't want to give it to them. We don't want to be the ones that have to solve the problem either, which is kind of, that's not what our goal, our
It's not
thing is.
our role. Not our role.
Right.
No. So would you folks be comfortable if I wrote something up and worked with Peter on it? And I'm saying just work with Peter and I work on it because we've done memos for the select board, read select board memos and done select board memos before. Would everybody feel comfortable with that? We're going to make, I want to think that it should be really short.
Yeah. I like what you've outlined here. So
Yeah. Less is more. And we don't do a PowerPoint. we don't list, oh, I'm sorry. You know, I've got varying degrees of things, but I don't think we should do anything but what our process was and what Hannah basically just said.
When
The less we say, the better, in order to be listening on September 9th.
Yeah.
And going from there.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure what was gonna happen on the 24th. I'm not sure that I viewed that as a second reading.
No, well, I think originally, literally originally back in July, the point was for them to get our stuff and then they would go and take our charter away with them and then make whatever decision they were gonna make.
I think the
But-
timing was they would have had to adopt it at the September 24th meeting in order
That's
to
right.
warn a meeting at the beginning of October. or November.
Right. So they may even on September 9th, and they get to warn the 24th select board meeting, go on, we don't even need to talk about this on the 24th. But we won't know that. And that's why I would love it if people could, is we'd have a meeting between the 9th and the 24th. And as weirdness would have it, because I was saving dates like crazy. VCTV in this room thinks we are going to be meeting on September 18th. So that's a possible date if people can do that. And that gives us, it's in between the 9th and before the 24th.
Which day?
September 18th, which is that Thursday. I mean, literally,
I can do that.
it's on everybody's schedule. I'm like, it is? Yep. It's already on my calendar. Okay. Because if we can do that, then we'll know more.
You good, Joy? Who's looking?
And hopefully it won't be a long meeting. I mean, I'm thinking by that point, we're not. It can
Do you need it differently?
I'm sure I can make it work.
Are you okay, Hannah?
Okay, so that can be, if that's okay, that can be our plan. Do we feel good about that?
Yay.
I feel good about where we've landed. Sorry to put you on the spot, Joy. I don't feel good about what's supposed to be a pickle we put you in. Would the 16th work better? And can the rest of us? I can do the 16th, which is 2 days earlier on a Tuesday night. Would that work for you, or would it work for everybody else, or not?
I have a select board meeting. Do they not have one on the 16th?
They usually do, but they've switched their schedules to the 9th and the 20th.
The 16th, isn't the 16th?
Oh, is it a Jewish holiday?
Yeah,
That's probably why they've juggled their calendar. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. And the 18th isn't?
the 18th is not.
Okay. Or the beginning of the following week before the 24th.
No, I don't mean to be a whatever. I have to see my family.
I'm sorry.
I have to see my family, the thing. So no, I mean, I can be here.
Should we do the scheduling by email
Can you
instead
do
of tonight?
I mean, that's the thing is I probably can connect in digitally if that feels okay. If that's enough.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Totally. Then yes, not even a worry.
The 18th?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Appreciate that flexibility. I was worried that I wouldn't be able to come in digitally, but if
Oh, no, that's fine.
Okay. Love it. Awesome. We're on board.
Perfect. And VCTV's on board and the select board meeting's on board. Okay. Perfect. Great. All right.
So when do we have to have the materials to them for their book?
Well, the town offices are closed on Monday. So we know we at least have until Tuesday. And the question I would have for you, Hannah, and maybe like Jessica or Seth is smarter than we are, is like when we do our copies, it would be great to have on the front of this Charter Revision Commission recommendations.
Working draft.
Working
Working
draft,
draft.
and then the date, like 8/28. So,
I can do all that formatting stuff after.
yeah.
That's why we don't have a clean draft either, because I knew we were maybe, well, I didn't want to have to do it 3 times.
Really? Oh, yeah. So then we can do that. And so I'm thinking if Peter and I can work over the weekend or something on the memo, and if Hannah, if it's possible to get something like Tuesday or at least Wednesday morning or something, so I can get it to Jessica, so she's not we're not driving her crazy.
Yeah, I have the red line version pulled up and I can make our changes as we go tonight.
Okay.
And then if I can, it will be less work to do the clean version. I just didn't want to have to keep doing it because it's not as simple as just turn on and off track changes because of how we've done it, which I think is actually really good for in terms of actually keeping track of what's new and what's not. Like, but it's been.
Well, especially with moving the sections around.
Right.
Yeah,
That's-
I'm gonna start messing with that unless everyone else was on board with it.
When I saw that, like, oh no, she's gonna have to move all this track stuff, which is gonna leave tracking on the page that it left.
Mhm.
You know, that is my.
I think I managed to with only moving 3 sections.
Yeah, it was good.
We can when we go through it, we can get into it. But there were some points where if it was more than 50% edited from what it originally was, I just crossed it out.
You're an expert now at tracking.
So you can do
Okay.
the cover. With the- Okay.
So the plan for the select board, I think we have that. So do we want to just go back to where we started and go through the charter?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and are you gonna raise Hillary's points
Yeah.
as we arrive at those spots?
and does anyone need a refresher on what Hillary's things are? I have the comments. And I'm sorry, like I copied it in a little bit. You guys need anything?
Do you need her comment? Anybody?
If you have an extra print, I can take it,
I
yeah.
do. Okay, I will read it for the people that aren't, who don't have this piece of paper. When we get there.
Thank you.
Okay. So, one thing I didn't do, Hannah, and I can just confirm it because I need you, is just make sure that the table of contents, I forgot to go through and just.
Oh, it's right.
Is it okay? Not that I don't believe you, but I don't know if you wanted to check on it. Like, you know what I mean?
I did it last.
Okay. Okay. How do we want to do it? Do we just want to go, say, does anybody have an issue with this article? Is that how we want to do it?
Yeah.
Is that the best way to do it?
There are some additions.
Okay. Do you want to like flag those, Hannah? And I think when we get to,
Yeah.
well, we can deal with Hillary's thing right off the bat because Article 1 under general provisions under Section 1, the definitions. And for everybody out in the world who doesn't have this piece of paper, Hillary, our town clerk, is worried about the confusion about what an annual town meeting is, and that there are 2 distinct things. There's the Australian ballot voting on Tuesday, and there's the open town meeting on Saturday, which is replacing representative town meeting. So, her exact wording is, I'm wondering if we can separate out terms for annual town meeting. People get confused when we have 2 different voting methods on 2 different days. They don't know what we're talking about. Can we call annual town meeting the date of the Australian ballot on the first Tuesday, and annual open town meeting the day of open town meeting on the first Saturday following the first Tuesday? And I see her point. I mean, we grappled with this. We really struggled with it that night when we were, well, it's just last week, wasn't it? It felt like it was like ages. It was just a week
No, it was a
ago.
couple weeks ago.
No, it was last week.
Was it last week?
Yeah.
It was last week.
Yeah.
Right.
It was last week.
Right.
So when I got her memo, I went like I read through everything again from the like from the lens of somebody that wasn't sitting in the room knowing what we did. And when you read it and you don't know our conversation, it really is unclear. You know what I mean? Like we know what we're talking about. And then when it struck me, like Hillary, who was the town clerk, is seeing confusion, and she does this for a living. So,
But is the language actually confusing, or are we just worried about people being confused about the fact that there's 2 votes?
I think the language,
Because I feel like we picked these very deliberately
right.
to encompass both.
To me, what I see, and maybe it's, I went through and maybe we can go through as we go to each one, is there's references in here to annual town meeting. And I see what Hillary's saying, because you get to them in somebody, I struggle with this in some ways, because I know we don't really necessarily want to spoon feed people, but we've worked really hard to create a document that's understandable. And if somebody's going to read something and it's going to be confusing, then we've just spent all our time making something that's still confusing.
And well, but to that same point of there's other places where annual town meeting is said, this is the definition. And it says both. And in the places where there is a question, we took great care last week to make sure it was clear. So this definition sits in context. And as long as there's not a legal reason to change it, I think we are clear throughout the document.
Well, go ahead. Well, I was going to say the interesting thing is I went through and I highlighted some of the places that used to say representative town meeting, which is very clear, like representative town meeting. It now says annual town meeting.
Yeah.
So that's the confusion.
And I think I agree with what you said, Joy, about this is the definition. People can see that annual town meeting, when it's used that way, refers to either or both. What you said, Kate, is where my mind was going. Was I think it calls to us to be careful as we go through the document to find those other places that maybe we want to be more explicit and not just call it annual town meeting, but we can make those decisions as we see those spots.
Yeah.
Last week, there were a couple of places that some of us felt strongly it should be more explicit, and we worked with that and got to a place. And maybe to this question about, that Hillary has raised about the potential for confusion just calls to us to look at each spot where we say annual town meeting and decide whether that's the right phrase for that spot or whether it needs to be more specific.
Yeah.
Purposely supposed to be, at least the way I drafted it, an umbrella term.
Right.
That encompasses.
Yeah. I'm seeing that, and I'm thinking that's right for the definition, and we have the opportunity to take another look at whether we think we need to be more explicit in certain spots. So
Yeah.
So as we read through, especially if you highlighted them, then yeah, we can continue. But I think I would say to her question, in what is specifically called out in definitions, I think the definition is good, well, thumbs up. I don't want to change it.
And I think I read it. I think when Hillary, I just do think when we go through, we just have to make sure. Mm-hmm. Because it was interesting, because when we were looking at it last week, I wasn't looking at, it used to say representative town meeting, and now it's saying annual meeting. And some places it said general town meeting, and it's saying annual meeting. Mm-hmm. So why didn't we switch the representative ones to open? But we just got to go through it, I think, now, because I think Hillary has a good point. I mean, she knows what she's talking about. Well,
in some cases, we didn't want to switch representative to open. There were things we were doing to try to declutter the warning for the open town meeting as well.
Yeah. And I think that's when we go through, I can say to Hillary, here's why we made these decisions that we did make. I told her we were going to talk about this tonight. because some of the things, I mean, I think we did a really good job. So I'm not dissing us, you know what I mean? But it's kind of like when somebody who knows it is saying, I'm confused, or people will be confused. I just want us to go through and point it out, you know? Okay, so that's the very first.
So can I just sort of, we all have the table of contents, but just to make it clear, Article 1 is now general provisions, and it includes subsections on definitions, conflicts of interest, and limits on terms of office. And the conflict of interest is new tonight, but it is language we had already approved in like January of 2024 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great on the mile.
So Article 2, I moved some things around, just because that was sort of a weird, unwieldy article before that didn't really, it was, what was it called? It was called Organization of Town Government. So a lot of the stuff that we kept, it made more sense to sort of put into different spots. So this now goes in the order of elected officers, elected committees, ballots, write-in candidates, and then the early voting procedures, which I know it seems sort of counterintuitive to put early voting last, but I think it's better to sort of go through the standard way and then the early voting at the end.
Well, Hillary's made a comment,
Yeah, it was certificate.
on page 2 at the top of the second column. She would like us to call it petition of nomination.
No, I think just petition.
Just petition.
But is that confusing because petitions are other things in here?
Well, I think that's what it,
This was the exact language that was already in there for how to get an RTM petition to run for RTM.
should this say petition rather than certificate?
And she said she's not sure it matters, but it might be clearer to the average reader.
Well, people do circulate petitions.
For other purposes. I think I find that compelling, Hannah, that this was already this way, and it helps actually distinguish it from the other kinds of petitions that people can file.
Now, can we just go back to the one thing is in the select board section, wait, let me go back. The elected committees, section 2, number 3, it says, the terms of the newly elected committee member shall begin on the first Monday following the adjournment. And that's under the select board section, but it doesn't address the moderator. And I'm assuming we want that the moderator is going to start the same time. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't address when the moderator starts. So does there have to be something?
We could either add it to that, or we could just say that the terms for all elected positions start that, but I don't know if there's some reason to not, they're so close together now, it doesn't really matter, but like with the listers and the trustees of the public funds, I don't think it really makes a difference, but maybe it makes more sense to break that out into a separate subsection and just say that the terms start the Monday following the adjournment of the annual town meeting.
The terms.
Oh, you're responding.
No, I was going to say like the terms of everybody, all the elected officers under section 1.
And the elected committee members.
So
And
the moderator will have been elected the year before.
Yes,
Like everybody else.
that's how it works in other towns.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the only one. So whatever so you're saying, Hannah, eliminate.
I'm saying move section 2A3 to perhaps a new section 3, and then everything else gets bumped back.
Okay. And it just says everybody gets.
All elected
Yes.
officers and committees terms shall begin the Monday following.
Yep.
Yes.
And then we can probably take that out of the select board part. It's once we get there, you'll see that sort of
Select board part anyway.
It is.
it is. It's right at the beginning.
It's there.
I think there's some stuff that we should leave there and it makes more sense to have it there, but maybe it makes sense to move some of that tiebreaker stuff up as well.
Blind, I'm not seeing it. You said right at the beginning,
Yeah.
right at the beginning of Article 2?
Oh, the select board.
The select board section.
Oh, so there's where it
Page
talks about their
7.
terms, even though this is where it talks about their
Yeah.
election. That talks about
The
what.
whole separate thing about, if there's a tie and a recount, and it didn't seem like that felt like it needed to get moved up, but it could.
I feel like that's about the election and not about the
We can look at it when we get there.
In any case, the idea of trying to do it all with one section and having it be its own section and using this language in what's currently 2A3 sounds really good.
Yeah. Great.
We're not finished.
Oh, it says following the final adjournment of the annual town meeting.
Right.
Is that annual open town meeting?
It's both. I think it's fine that it's both because it's after it ends. It's going to end at the same time no matter what. I don't think there's any reason to distinguish that from the open town meeting.
I don't think there's any reason. I would be curious if somebody would then read it and be like, okay, so on Wednesday morning, I'm the moderator. Or am I the moderator? But except that it says
It's
the
still the
Monday.
following.
So then there is no in between. They are right. So just playing out the scenario, guys. Wednesday morning, no one can say it's me because it explicitly says Monday. So it doesn't matter.
The first Monday.
Monday.
Yes.
So even if they think they win on Tuesday and they think, ooh, I'm it right away, they're still not it until Monday.
Correct.
Right. So that's right. We do still have the thing we talked about a long time ago, and maybe it felt resolved. But frankly, I don't feel like it got resolved. I also didn't think to bring it back up again until now, but now it's pertinent. This idea of adjournment. So especially with the thing being compressed, it would be an unusual circumstance, but it's not impossible that we'd be in the middle of holding an open town meeting on the first Saturday after the first Tuesday, and circumstances happen, and we might not even be in the middle of holding it, right? There could have been like COVID or something, and so it gets pushed out. And so that adjournment, I'm concerned about the adjournment word, rather than having it be clear that it's, the Monday following the election day.
My argument would be if the meeting hasn't finished, don't you want the same people there?
I don't think you do indefinitely. That's my point, is that, if the meeting hadn't finished and it's going to be continued on Monday, then swearing people in on Tuesday is no big deal. But if the meeting hasn't finished and it's going to be held some other time for who knows what reasons, right? I mean, there might be decisions of the body that, recess the meeting maybe to the following weekend to pick it up again on Saturday of the following week. And so now you got this week in between.
Committees, they've done all of this work.
Yeah.
Do you want them getting replaced by new committee members that then have to argue the work of the previous committee?
The work of the previous committee could still show up in the meeting. It's just a question. And the only one that is seated in any kind of special way is the select board. It just feels to me like you don't want to prevent the select board from getting on into its new select board year because we've had some anomaly related to the open town meeting.
And it's only recently, whatever recently is, that the select board, this happened, because it used to be the new select board would go to town meeting, have to sit there and defend the old select board's budget. I remember,
Yeah.
well, I think that was before you got there. It was just not,
It had just changed.
it had just changed. So it happens. It's happened that it used to happen. That used to be the standard, is that the new select board was defending the old select board stuff.
In any event, I understand that it would be a rare occasion. It just feels to me like we have the opportunity to avoid getting into a point of confusion on that rare occasion by using different phraseology here. Same intent, like there's a moment when that handoff takes place, and that moment can be that following Monday, like it traditionally has been. I just think we should describe it differently than the Monday following the adjournment of the meeting.
Maybe you want to say something?
So Peter, I was a little confused with what you're saying. I was agreeing with you initially because what my thought was, if you don't, so if you simply go with the meeting after the following Monday, then you could run into the situation as you described, where all of a sudden now you've got a new group of people
Yes.
that are going then to be discussing or making a decision about a point of order. So it's like you'd be having to start the meeting all over again. I don't think it's because you've got a whole group. So if in fact you run into the situation where your Saturday meeting gets pushed out a week,
Yes.
you've now come up to your Monday where you are anticipating a complete changeover or potential changeover of the people who participated in the meeting on a Saturday.
Yes.
The votes may be different. It's not as though you could pick up the meeting where you left off, or do you have to go back to the?
No, you'd have to pick up the meeting where you left off. The other business got finished. But actually, as we're talking about this, it occurs to me, the one office where I don't think it would work is for moderator.
Right.
Because you wouldn't want to switch a moderator in the middle of the meeting. But otherwise, I don't see why the changing away from the word adjournment couldn't work.
The President of the United States gets sworn in on June 20th or January 20th at noon, whether or not there's a catastrophe going on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like the same kind of thing. We don't sit there and go, we have an Iran hostage situation. Sorry, we're going to let you stay. And you can't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a definite day.
So is it enough just to say the first Monday following annual town meeting, not adjournment?
That's what I'm thinking.
And so then
That's exactly
whatever happens on Tuesday or Saturday happens. But
Monday is the swearing in of the new officials. Yep. That's exactly what I'm thinking. I'm thinking adjournment there is more specific than we need to be and could be problematic on rare occasions.
David.
David Lombard, District 9, when great minds get together, new questions arise. In the event of a recess, I don't know how it works with Robert's Rules of Order or anything else. If there's a recess and you come back the next week, someone who was there the previous week could make a motion to reconsider something that was already decided. And if they don't, if they can get somebody who was on the affirmative side to call for a motion to reconsider, and you flood the meeting, you could undo the work of the previous week. I wouldn't advertise that.
You just did.
Nobody watches PCTV.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's a way in which, an unintended consequence could occur.
Yeah.
But we're talking about the select board, the finance committee, the human services
It was just
committee.
the question that we got, when we got into the recess question, I was thinking of an open town meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
That's just why
Yep.
I raised it now.
Okay.
But, the other thing is you've trimmed the meeting so much, you might be able to get through it one day.
Right.
I think so.
Recess.
I'm not worried about being able to get through it in one day. I'm, I guess back to, it's kind of the theme for tonight, at least for me, that we don't know what we don't know, right? And there are unusual circumstances.
Yeah.
We've already encountered some just in recent years. Something as crazy as completely unrelated to town government as a pandemic that caused us to go online for a couple of years, and that was really challenging. But we don't know what we don't know, and so I want to be careful about that one word. I like your solution, Joy.
I just don't understand why you wouldn't want the same people to be there through the full meeting.
Because of the uncertainty of when the full meeting might end. So if the full meeting normally ends, if the full meeting ends as it normally does on the Saturday, this is completely moot. And if it ends on the Monday, it's almost completely moot, right? But there's circumstances we can't predict that might cause it to be different than that. In COVID, for instance, we were able to adjust and hold a meeting. Actually, no, we didn't. We didn't. We had to, because it was in September that it was actually held. We had to get special permission to do the
Yeah.
transition. Yeah.
We had it on 2 different days. I mean, it went
Yeah.
for 2 days.
Yeah.
And in that case, you know what I mean? You had, if that had happened now and there were new people elected, you know what I mean? It just,
My sensibility is what you articulated about, the president gets sworn in on January 20th. It feels clearer to me that we would just declare that the Monday following the election, people who've gotten elected get sworn in.
Or see that if there was an extension of a meeting, folks, they would, to capitalize on momentum, you would just have it the next day. So if it's a Saturday, it's going to be Sunday, which is still before Monday.
That has happened.
So
Yeah.
I don't see any, again, the momentum, people are not going to come back in a week. We just know that. And so it was even a part of our consideration on what Saturday to choose. So I think by keeping it tight, most folks, somebody would propose, it would be that Sunday, still before Monday.
So,
It would be a moot point again.
so how do you want this to read? The terms for newly elected committee members shall begin on the first Monday
following the annual.
following the annual town.
And
Yeah.
just to make note, because it's not just going to be this committee members, it's going to be the committee
That's right.
members.
And the other elected officers.
Do we, I know Hannah doesn't like it, but we feel.
I just don't, why do you want a new moderator if it has to get recessed till Tuesday? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Right. So that I've named that, and perhaps we want to say something different about the moderator or not. I'm open to that conversation. I think in the general case, this is better, and I respect that you don't. So-
And I think too, especially like in the select board, the people have elected a select board to start on a certain day. They don't think the select board is going to start 6 months from now because of there's COVID. You know what I'm saying? That's why I keep going to the President of the United States thing, because it's like you've elected someone to start on a certain day. And I think it's going to be a rare occurrence, but again, that's right. We had our town meeting in September as opposed to March that year.
But you didn't adjourn it until September, did you? You just had it in September.
You know what? That might in fact be what happened. I don't remember exactly how it was done. What I remember is the substance of the meeting occurred in September that year. And in some places it happened in smaller towns. They actually went outside and did it in like May and June. Nobody did it in March. Everything was shut down in March. We weren't allowed to be together, and the living our lives on Zoom hadn't happened yet. So the meeting happened in September. What I don't recall is the legal mechanics by which that happened. There was either some action of the governor and his executive orders, or it was opening up a meeting, declaring that no quorum is present, but those of us present, rescheduling to I don't remember how
I
it
think it was an executive order.
Yeah, might have been that.
I think it was too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was different than.
Yeah.
It being. But we didn't wait.
To swear in the select board. The
No.
select board, although I also don't remember whether there was turnover on the board that year. So that might not have been a factor.
Might not have been even an issue.
In any case, we've talked before about hills we won't die on. I'm not going to die on this hill, but if 4 of us think that this is helpful clarification, then I think we should proceed with it. And the remaining question is, do we want to say something different about moderator?
I mean, this sounds, but the moderator was elected to be the moderator. Then that person should be the moderator.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like somebody else ran and won. So why are we singling that person out? David.
Okay, David Minor. there's just, this is kind of, I guess, a technical question. There are two separate sections, one regarding elected officers and one regarding elected committees. In 3, you're talking about the start of the term of elected committees, and under elected officers, there's no definition of when they're going to start. You could just plot in there.
What we're gonna do is do a separate section. We're taking it out of committees and making it its own thing and saying it accounts for every elected officer.
That section 3 right now that's specific to the committees is going to become its own section of the article, and it's going to speak to everybody who gets elected on Tuesday.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so we're agreeing with you. I mean, I just don't know why we're gonna say anything different about the moderator.
Okay.
The person ran to be moderator.
We got elected.
And they gotta be moderator in 3 days or a week or whatever. That's just how I feel.
So I will admit that I see that as a downside of this whole Pandora's box I opened, but I still think in the general case, it's the right change to make, and I can live with that risk if we can as a group.
I mean,
Sorry, Hannah.
but if everybody disagrees with me, moderator. I just think this person is elected, just like being on the select board.
Mhm.
You have to start right away. And you may, we just put 3 new select board members through doing an entirely new budget.
Right.
Because they got elected, that's what their job was.
Right.
Just because the budget got voted down didn't mean that they didn't have to do it. Well, I don't know. All right,
So do we have language?
I think it says the terms of the whatever, all the elected officials and whatever,
The
Shall
terms for
begin-
all newly elected.
whatever.
Officers and committee members shall begin on the first Monday following the annual town meeting.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay,
exactly.
That sounds good.
done. Okay. And we've decided that we're leaving certificate of nomination as is,
Yes.
because that's what we need. Hannah, you'll stop us when you get something new. Is everybody okay with page 3? Anyone okay with page 4, which is all the crossouts for the school and stuff?
No, I want to put that back in.
We're on page 5. I just want to call out, because these are where the annual town meeting references are, so we'll just look at them. Not that we're gonna want to switch anything, but under section 2, initiative, under A, I'm just calling this all out because we might as well while we're here. It's a petition for inclusion in the warning of an article to reflect public sentiment. It just says, if it is desired that the article be acted upon by all the voters of the town by Australian ballot, the petition shall state so. Sounds fine to me. Does it sound fine to everybody? Then you go number 2, under that, it says, the select board upon receipt of such petition shall place the article on the warning for the next annual town meeting.
Mhm.
Everybody okay with that? Because we
Yep.
talked about Australian ballot up on top.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, they have to say they want it as Australian ballot.
But that's 2 follows 1. In 1, if they've said they were going to have an Australian ballot, they want it on Australian ballot, then the select board's going to place it on Australian ballot.
If they don't.
But if they haven't said it, then the select board wouldn't need to place it on Australian ballot. They would have a choice, I think. But in any case, the annual town meeting covers both, so
Yeah.
we're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then we go B, petition for inclusion in the warning of an article to adopt an ordinance. The select board upon receipt of the petition shall place the article on the warning for the next annual town meeting. And it used to say representative town meeting.
Did it say?
Then it goes, if the date of the next annual town meeting falls within 60 days after receipt of the petition, and if the petition is presented within sufficient time to be legally warned for the meeting, that meeting. So this is,
I think that this should say the open meeting portion of the annual town meeting because that's how an ordinance ought to get considered as opposed to just a yes or no vote on something somebody wrote.
it used to be representative town meeting.
Is there any reason we can't just put in the same language that we have in the first one and say if they want it by Australian ballot, it can be?
Because that's the curious thing is is there amount language that we have to follow about an ordinance? Obviously, charter can narrow that, but is this mirroring? I'm not trying to undo, I'm not trying to replace with a state statute. Don't hear that. I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
but I'm fine with if they want it if the petitioners want it by Australian ballot, I would be okay with that language to be replicated for an ordinance.
I'd be concerned about an ordinance being considered by Australian ballot because it's an ordinance, because it's not something that lends itself necessarily well to a yes or no vote. Ordinances are not usually a sentence or two. They're usually relatively complicated documents, and it would be helpful to be able to have discussion and possibly amend that ordinance before having a vote on it. So I think having that done in the in-person part of the meeting would actually be important.
It's kind of, it's like when we rescinded the ordinance, there was an in-person meeting where people could discuss.
Yeah.
We couldn't.
Right. In the case of a rescission, it is just a yes or no vote. But in the case of adopting the ordinance, in the first instance, it could be amended.
But we had an open meeting.
Yeah.
Right. Because the process called for it to go to representative town meeting.
So do we want to make it clear we're talking about the next open annual town meeting?
I'm suggesting I think that would be wise in this case. Troy has observed that maybe we want to instead defer to the petitioners. And I think there's a fair conversation to be had there. I think for the reasons I've said that it something we ought to specify would be in the discussion face-to-face part of the meeting.
I could also see a relatively straightforward ordinance that doesn't lend itself to a lot of modifications, easily being dealt with on an Australian ballot, which is why I would suggest that we give both options.
If we write it the same way, however, and the option is held by the petitioners rather than by the select board in the warning, then our language would enable petitioners to write something long and complicated and call for it to be a yes or no vote. And maybe that wouldn't work in their favor. Maybe it would. I don't know. I'm not trying to predict outcomes. I just think for process, it would be better to have the opportunity for discussion and potential amendment.
Right, because the initiative, if you really read it, it's like, well, I guess you have to say you want it on Australian ballot. Otherwise,
Right.
it goes to
Discussion.
But I think that's different because it's advisory.
right.
But
But it's like
ordinance would be something.
agree.
that
I
would
totally agree.
Yeah.
That's my point.
I'm reading like if we do we really want to take that language and put it down there? I don't think we do. Oh, I'm sorry. What are you guys thinking down there?
Well, to maybe have it reflect rescinding an ordinance, the statement, so this is page 6, bottom of the first column is section 3, reconsideration of ordinance, and it says petition the select board in accordance with state laws. So trying to get our fingertips on how difficult or what the process is for reconsideration.
Yeah.
Just to see maybe if they mirror each other.
Yeah.
Mirror each other.
I'd be perfectly happy with slimming the adoption of an ordinance down to be as simple as the rescission, where we follow the state law.
And maybe it's not as simple as, but at least the process, like to
The decisions might not be simple, but the language for the charter would be simple because we'd be deferring to state law. The select board would have to travel under state law.
Towns don't allow voting on an ordinance by
No,
petition.
that's right. We just had this conversation with Bob, and these are the initial,
Right.
these are the
Okay.
we are doing special.
Right.
I just looked at my.
So a rescission can be done under state law, but an adoption cannot be done.
Right.
Under state law.
Section 2 does
Got it.
not allow in state law, so we can't.
Okay.
Well, that's with it.
Yeah.
Don't cut it out.
Don't worry.
But it's the process of it.
Yes.
Our process might be more in line with how to rescind. So does the select board have to put it to Australian ballot to rescind an ordinance? Or can they go to an open setting?
Or does it have to go to an open setting?
Or they have
Or it
to.
used to have to go to representative town meeting.
Right.
Are we still talking about section 2?
We are.
B?
Yep.
So we're
2B is where we are. And it would have been wonderful if we could have just made it parallel language, but we can't. Thanks for remembering that.
And otherwise, it would be to be specific potentially on where how an ordinance gets done. Should we be specific and say at the open town meeting of annual?
because it used to be the representative town meeting. We were that specific before.
Yeah.
Before we crossed it out.
Yeah.
Because we were.
I would suggest that we leave it as it is because that makes the document more evergreen.
More what?
Evergreen. Well, if the town at some point decided to vote to have everything by Australian ballot, this gives it the flexibility to,
Yeah, but if that happens, then there'll be other changes that are going to need to be made as well. I think if we think that something ought to be heard in a public meeting, y'all might not agree with me. I'm just saying, I think for the reasons I've already said, that adopting an ordinance by the people rather than by the select board is something that ought to be done by a group of people in a room talking and listening to one another.
Yeah.
And if a majority of us agree with that, we ought to say so.
I agree.
And so, I mean, in reading it, if somebody wants to adopt an ordinance, there is no information meeting required. So a question would go before voters without any information, unless there's discussion. And have it be binding. So for those reasons, I think that it should be in a debatable setting.
Because currently, in order for the select board to adopt an ordinance, it takes like 3 times.
Exactly. In an open session, people can talk and weigh in, say consequences.
It shouldn't be. So if we're going to say the open meeting of the annual town meeting.
Yeah, I don't remember. We had that language someplace else. I think.
Convenience?
Around
the budget.
Open meeting of the annual town meeting.
Or open, was it just open meeting of or open meeting portion of, but something.
Yeah, open meeting of the annual town meeting.
Okay. I think we should keep the word next
Yes.
in there. So it'd be article on the warning for the open meeting of the next annual town meeting.
Everyone.
It carries over to page 6, 5 to 6.
Well, sorry.
It's telling her where to find it.
Oh, yeah. Bottom of page 5. Can I read it one more time? Make sure we're all on the same page.
You're doing.
Yeah, yep, starting with 2. So B2, the select board, upon receipt of such petition, shall place the article on the warning for the open meeting of the next annual town meeting.
No, are you?
And then if the next.
And then it goes on from there in ways that I don't think we need to change.
Well, so it's shall place the article on the warning for the next.
For the open meeting of the, I like the word,
Yes.
I like the word portion, but I think if we've already passed that bridge and decided we don't use portion, we just say open meeting of the next, open meeting of the annual meeting, I'm fine with that. But this is a spot where that language would be used.
Does that make sense, Hannah, what you're looking at? And then we're not changing anything when you flip the page over.
Correct.
So the next sentence, if the date of the next annual meeting falls within 60 days, we're not changing that.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so then we're getting to, then we get down to C, petition to bring a vote of the town. Petition to bring to a vote of the town, a proposed amendment to the town planning zoning laws. You get down to number 3 under, 3, it says the select board shall hold a hearing on the proposed petition within 60 days after the submission by the planning commission and shall therefore thereafter warn a vote by Australian ballot. We're all set with that on the proposed amendment. Nobody objects using Australian ballot. Then it goes, if the date of the annual town meeting falls within 60 days, blah, 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 blah. That used to say general town meeting.
Yep, and I think that's fine. And just to be really clear about why would that be fine if the other one wasn't? There's a public hearing held by the planning commission, followed by a public hearing held by the select board, and then a vote of the people.
Right. By Australian ballot.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. Then we get to section 4, referendum. It says the voters of the town may petition for a referendum by Australian ballot of all voters of the town on a final vote on a warrant article taken at annual or special town meeting. It used to say representative town meeting.
A referendum. What's that legal term? Like, what does that mean? Petition for referendum. Just want to make sure it's super
isn't it-
covered and, you know.
Because it says the voters of the town may petition for a referendum by Australian ballot on a final vote on a warrant article taken at town meeting. So I think it's if there's something that was warned and I think it was especially important with representative town meeting.
Right.
Because representative town meeting did something that nobody liked.
Yeah.
So you could say, no, I don't like it.
You take it from the smaller group
Yeah.
out to all the voters.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Does it still serve us?
Right. Do we want an open town meeting action to be able to be appealed in this manner?
right, that's the question. But
I would say yes.
I think that addresses concerns that people have with the open town meeting.
Yeah.
yeah.
Curious.
Yeah.
Potentially having
Yeah.
fewer people involved. Yep.
And it's an
I think
Australian.
that's right.
Yeah, and it's an Australian ballot vote, so it makes sense.
Yep. I think that's right.
Yeah. Good question, Joy. We're just going down to recall.
Sorry, I just one thought. Should we make it clear that you can only do a referendum on something that was voted on at the open portion of the meeting? This is the one time where I'm maybe gonna say. I don't think you should get a second bite at the apple.
I think that's right.
You're
Also.
totally right.
Yeah.
You're totally right.
Yep. Yep.
So it'll be the open town meeting,
On
whatever.
a
they're
final
open-
vote on a warrant article taken at
The open town meeting.
the
That's it.
open meeting.
And open annual or special meeting.
I think it's the open meeting of an annual or special town meeting, right? No?
Whatever, what's that?
It's in the finance section.
Open town
I'll make it
meeting
match with
Does it say open town meeting?
Yeah.
Not open
No,
meeting,
no,
open town meeting?
No, it says open meeting of the annual town meeting.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's of an annual or special town meeting.
open meeting of an annual or special. town meeting.
Yeah,
That one.
perfect.
Yeah.
And I'm always gonna think of you if we ever do it about no. Okay. And then recall just says, hold a special election with voting by Australian ballot.
Yep.
I have to find that.
And sorry, not that I heard you, not that want to totally rehash, still in referendum. Petition needs to be filed within 10 days of adjournment of the meeting, needing 5% of the voters. So within 10 days of the open or special town meeting,
Yep.
5% of voters
Yeah.
need to have signed something and then into the clerk to start the process of certification.
It's a high bar because it's already been through the registered voter public process for action. So it is,
I think
it is a high bar, and it's also been used
Yeah.
in the past.
And in the event open town meeting does an outrageous thing, you'll get 500 signatures.
Everybody will.
But, I would, and I
Yeah.
realize it works,
Yeah.
but thank you for listening to me. Nobody ever does.
Okay, so the select board section, this is probably the one that's been reworked the most. Took a long time for me to figure out what made sense here. So the way it is now, we have this election and composition section, which is, I think, the one we could talk about whether or not this is appropriate here, it's still necessary here. I think that the whole recount procedures, I think that that's fine to, but if anyone thinks it should go elsewhere, we can. If we were to say we don't need the language about when their terms start because we've now incorporated that into the other one, I would say we should just take out all of subsection A and just have section 1 be subsection B.
So say that again, we would just take out A.
Yeah, and section 1 would not have subsections, it would just be the language from B.
Okay, that's weird.
And I'm sorry to be a pain in the neck. I really do think that one remaining section in this spot ought to go with the rest of the election language at the beginning of the document, not
Yeah.
special here.
One issue is that's going to require a lot of reworking there to fit this in because this only applies to select board.
Could there be a one-liner reference back there that tells someone to come here if there's a tie?
I think that's too much of a how-to manual.
Too much what?
I don't think we should have cross references like.
Yeah, but if we didn't have a whole section of a whole article of the charter about elections, then I'd be perfectly happy with this. But the fact that we have an article about elections and then we have this thing that is only about elections that's here, I get that it's only about elections and also only about the select board, but all the rest of this speaks to the select board, like powers, duties, functioning, whatever, and and there's not any other place where that would belong. But the elections piece has already its own article.
Is there any reason we need any of this? Like, why is this in here? Is there a tie? I assume there's a tiebreaker procedure under state law, and I don't know if that's different or.
Could you take a quick look
Yeah.
at that? That would be good to know. If there's a clear tie-breaking procedure in state law, let's rely on it.
That's all that is,
Mhm.
isn't it? I mean, I don't see any, it does say, well, 1 in 3 years, but that's kind of.
It does talk about terms.
Right, but we got that in the beginning where it says a select board of 5 members of whom 2 shall serve 1 year and 3 shall serve for 3 years. We have that on page 2.
Yeah. I think it's just a question of whether there's something clear for breaking ties in the statute, because this language that says if 2 people are tied for highest, they both get elected. Of course they do, because the 2 highest vote getters get elected.
Yeah.
So
That would be great if we just get rid of that.
it would be good.
In Arizona, they draw a card. It's gambling. Or flip a coin.
That's not a proposal, is it, David?
No.
Thank you.
Where is it that they flip a coin?
Arizona, a couple places have
Yeah.
some sort of chance.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing the reason this is in here is because if there is a tie vote for any office, they have to have a runoff. I don't know that it's really a tie vote if there's two.
Right.
No, so it's not a tie vote. If, let's say there's three people running for the two one-year seats and the two highest vote getters tie, that's not a tie. Not in the sense of, it's not a tie that needs to be broken because the other person trailed. The two who tied are going to get elected. That's fine. I think the only thing we need to be clear on is how do we break a tie for a 3-year seat or for the second position in a 1-year seat. So there's three people running for the 1-year seat. One gets 100 votes and the other two each get 98. Then that tie needs to get broken to figure out who's going to be on the board.
Right. And there's
Yeah, and a runoff just between those.
Just between those two.
But that's not what our thing says. The charter says if a tie is not broken, a new election shall be held as soon as practical. It doesn't say a runoff between the two people that are tied.
That's interesting.
Is
And
it
it ought to just be a runoff, number one. And number two is the only thing that this is specifying that the state law isn't is a recount in between. And seems, I'd be comfortable that we just follow state law here. We take out this entire section.
Fine with that, too.
Yep.
Okay, so we're gonna get.
And then
Section
Article 4
1.
makes more sense. Good.
So
So,
it starts with compensation.
yeah, I don't like that. I would propose that we start
General
with
provision.
General provision.
general provisions, and compensation could even go into that.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Good.
And just so we know, we're leaving it, the annual town meeting shall fix the compensation. So that.
So that it can be a question on Australian ballot if it's warned that way.
Right.
Yep.
That was one of the things we
Yep.
thought we could move to
Yep.
make it not drag on so long.
Definitely.
So this general provision section includes the electing their chair and vice chair, the role of the chair, the language we added in enabling them to act as all the other boards that they make up, and the restriction on incompatible offices.
The restriction on what? I'm sorry.
Subsection D looks new, but it's
Oh, yeah.
just been
Yeah.
moved.
Yep. Good.
And for these where it's been relocated like this and there's edits in there, that's just to show what we changed from what was originally in the old section. Then our vacancies procedure, the appointments. And then section 6, I really struggled with what to call this, but this used to be the prohibition section. But it's really just about the relationship of the select board.
I'm sorry. Can we go back? We made changes to B in the select board thing about giving warning. They basically, there's a preliminary vote where at least three of the four other members need to approve a motion that states the basis on which the fifth member might get removed so that there's public notice of why they're going to hold consideration of removing their colleague.
So this is section 4 vacancy.
Yeah, page 7.
Yeah. For 4B. There was, I don't remember the exact wording of that language, but it's missing from here. And I don't know whether there were other changes to this section too, that is part of bringing that in, or whether it was just.
Literally copy pasted this from what it was last
Well,
week.
yeah, it was within the last month, we actually looked at that language. I don't have my prior drafts with me, unfortunately.
We can go back and look. That's.
I have old drafts.
It's not gonna be in any of the old drafts, because it
Right, you would have taken it over.
would have carried it over.
All right, so we're gonna flag that.
We'll just flag it and come back to it with a, grab it, since we're not going to be finished tonight anyway, that's something we can grab and bring back to the next time we meet.
Yeah, does that make sense?
Sure.
Just figure out what meeting we talked about it on, and watch that portion of the meeting and figure out what we were doing.
Sure.
I think that makes sense.
You're talking about section 4B, right?
Yeah.
I found the language, it was in purple.
Oh.
It said the select board shall consider requiring a member to forfeit their office only after a majority of the other select board members have voted in the affirmative on a motion stating their reasons for such consideration.
That's it.
Okay. Okay, so we don't have to watch the meeting.
And you said that it was in purple. Is there a possibility that other purple language didn't make it over to this draft? Should we go looking for that just as a, I'm happy to go double check against that.
Purple.
I'm sorry?
It would still be in purple.
So
Oh, but it didn't show up here.
I don't think it made it into here because it was in purple in what you sent.
Right. Right, because when I sent it to differentiate from your greens and reds, I sent purples and blues. Purple coming in and blue coming out. So my question is, if there's a possibility that the other purple language didn't make it in because it was purple, I'm happy to go back and do a double check on that as well.
I mean, I think it's unlikely. I think it's just like, just look at, I mean, like Joy, look at this, like you cannot.
I cannot tell.
But most of the others, that is not, you don't have that same issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just because it was a full addition with no blue adjacent to it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's also near yellow, which also like makes like blends out the purple too.
Fair enough.
So we're all
Thank you.
set. We found that. We'll fix it.
Great.
Okay.
Appointments.
Anything on that? Page 8.
And so this section 6 was what was called prohibitions before, and we struggled with that for a long time because it was a really bad title.
Yeah.
I phrase this as relation to the town manager because there's sort of an equivalent section in the town manager section that says supervision by the select board.
Okay.
So it sort of made them nearer to sort of have a, including that in the title of that section. But if, I mean, I really had a hard time coming up with what to call this. If someone has something better, I just tried to come up with something that made sense.
Yeah. I'll give it some more thought. I may suggest something to you, but I think it's fine for now. Yeah. The one thing we might want to consider, and I think we should not discuss it, we should just think about it because we'll have the opportunity to change it later, is just whether parallel language, you mentioned there is really a parallel section or a counterpart section to this in the town manager section. So I'll think on whether or not there's one phrase that could be used to address both sides of the relationship.
I didn't want to just say the town manager, like it felt like it needed some more descriptor. than
Yep.
that.
Yep, I hear you. Okay.
Then subsection 7 is just the old subsection 6 with our changes.
All the cross outs.
And then I haven't made any changes to the sections in Article 5. It's the same as it was last week.
Page 12, right? Yeah.
And then finances. We already went through all of this with the references. Are we all from are we ready for finances? 14.
Mhm.
And went through. On this one, we went through all of it. You know what I mean? The general fund budget.
Very thoroughly
We
last
went through
time.
all of that.
And you've got the February 20th and the November 15th dates modified from before. Thank you.
And it is still so curious to me. I'm not recommending a change, but like that here, it is so specific with November 15th, February 20th. So it is, that can absolutely be evergreen. There's zero issue with that. It is curious and it's still like, it stands out as unique. I think it shows the serious consideration that has been taken for the section. So I'm not saying anything about it, like to modify it by any means. I'm just lifting up. It's still, it lifts up as curious.
It does. Totally acknowledge that. What I would say is we could shift back, and I don't suggest it, and I don't think you're suggesting it. There's a lot of places in here where it's 60 days prior, not sooner than, not longer, whatever. There's lots of places where we have number of day references. And one of these used to be that, and we certainly could go to that in both places. And it feels to me like that would be less transparent. And for these purposes, these two dates work, in my opinion. If it feels too weird, because in all those other places we say 60 days or 90 days or 30 days or 20 days, we could go back to thinking about what would be the number of days we would pop into these two spots.
I mean, I think we've got time, a little bit of time to, again, see the context that this would be placed in and the concerns of the community and what this is attempting to address. But in my mind, I was like, oh, it's because annual town meetings like doesn't move, but it does. And so it just, I'm not saying change it. I'm just acknowledging it. Somebody reading through it might go, oh, that's specific.
Yeah.
And I'm going to pay attention to this section now because it's specific.
Yep.
I mean, don't get every 60 days is also specific, but
But it's specific and moving. Understood. Okay.
For now. Maybe 15.
There's one reference here to annual town meeting that I think might, I think it's the wrong, if in section 6A under the Office of Assessment, it says that taxable property may be reappraised from time to time as may be deemed expedient by the annual town meeting. I think that should just say by the voters at a pursuant to a duly warned article.
I'm sorry, where are you?
Section 6A.
Page 15, 6A.
It's not really a body anymore. So I think the body is the voters. It's not.
Why wouldn't we say annual town meeting there?
Because how are they deeming it's expedient to do it if it wasn't already warned as an article?
Right, pursuant to a duly warned article.
Maybe it just needs to say at the annual town meeting. But I feel like someone needs to be doing the deeming and the annual town meeting is the body.
I'm open to rewording if you think this is not artful or clear. But I think it's important that when there's going to be a townwide reappraisal, that is something that gets proposed to the voters at town meeting, and then the voters at town meeting get to decide whether we're going to proceed with one. It feels to me like that's I don't see how saying voters here
Because someone has to deem it expedient, and the annual town meeting is a date now, it is not a body.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It can't do any deeming.
Interesting. I see.
So it either needs to say deemed
No,
expedient
no.
at the meeting or
Yep,
by the
yep.
voters.
Got it.
But what does it say deemed expedient? Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, is it redundant to go by the voters at annual town meeting? Is that redundant?
I think,
I think it needs to say by the voters, or it needs to say at the annual town meeting, like,
Because it's pursuant
Yeah.
to a duly warned article.
Actually, and deemed expedient is vague language too. Why don't we, as may be approved at the annual town meeting pursuant to a duly warned article? So the article is asking whether or not the voters approve that we proceed with reappraisal, and then that language runs parallel to where we're referring to that kind of thing every place else.
sorry, I'm just double checking something. It's there. There's actually a statute that went into effect on January 1st of this year. That might supersede this and make this whole thing not necessary. So, under the state law for reappraisals, has to be done anytime the common level of assessment drops below a certain threshold and no longer than 6 years. So I don't even know that.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Let's follow statute and just change B to A and so on. That's a good catch.
Can we just go, are we all set with that one? I'm just doing this because I'm neurotic and I want to make sure we check them all. We
Mhm.
can go back to capital expenditures.
Mhm.
It says the select board shall submit to the annual town meeting a list of possible capital expenditures for the next 5 years. Are we okay with saying annual town meeting?
Actually, that should be to the open part, because the open part is where the budget is going to get considered. And this is part and parcel of the budget.
And then we go to, under that same thing, B, no capital expenditure by the town shall be made or submitted for action at the annual town meeting without prior consideration of the select board.
Yep.
We okay with that? Keeping at the annual town meeting? Okay. Then we go up to revenue. A, it's on the top of page 15. The town may levy local taxes in such form as authorized by the General Assembly. Any such taxes must first be considered by the select board and then approved by the annual town meeting.
I think that one's okay to be either or, because it's a tax. It's not a thing that debate is going to lead to, well, let's do it this way instead of that way.
Should be at the annual town meeting and not by.
Sure.
Because again, it's
Right,
not a
not
body.
And you probably want to do a find and replace for
I
that.
think
You
I
might have missed it
took a list
elsewhere.
of them, but
Yeah.
once we have a full, like,
Yep.
but because I catch a lot of that stuff when I'm doing the clean version.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So we'll change that to at the annual town meeting.
Yeah.
We're fine with that. Okay.
But the other two that you named, we're going to put in the open meeting of, correct?
The first one.
Just the
Well,
first one?
expenditures, yeah, just A.
I was gonna say, the select board shall submit to the, whatever we do. open
And then
town
B
meeting.
would follow much mirroring language that we've done before, because it says open at the open town meeting. And then the next thing is,
B would say, no capital expenditure shall be made or submitted for action at the annual town meeting without prior consideration of the select board.
I think we need it in both places, because A speaks to the list that is explicitly non-binding ideas, intentions. Maybe it's going to happen, maybe it's not. B speaks to approving a capital expenditure.
Yeah, and it should be,
I think in both cases, it ought to say the open meeting of the
That is a budget item.
Yeah. Okay, so under capital expenditures, A and B are gonna be open.
Yeah.
Okay. And we've taken out office of assessment, okay.
Yep.
So can I flip over to the what other one? Page 16, under independent audit, which is now section 8. The select board shall provide for an independent audit of all town accounts when necessary as directed. The annual town. As directed at the annual town meeting. The select board shall provide for an independent audit of all town accounts when necessary or as directed at the annual town meeting. But
State
But-
law requires an annual audit. I don't know why we even have this language of it seeming discretionary, like you decide when you need one. We're required to do an annual audit.
Annual independent audit or an annual internal audit? Because the town contracts with an auditor,
right.
but that's not independent necessarily.
Well,
Yeah, no, that's what
the
that,
section is independent. audit.
right.
But the one that's required by statute.
The work that's
Because
done-
some towns have an elected auditor, I think is why the statute would be less clear. But you have to do an annual one. Why don't we just say the select board shall provide for an annual independent audit of all town accounts and not have when necessary or as directed by the town meeting?
Right. But then the other thing follows, the second sentence is fine, such audit shall be made by a certified public accountant.
Right.
Having no direct.
Right. There's no harm in
Yeah.
memorializing that it's an annual audit, right?
So this section would read, the select board shall provide for an independent audit of all town accounts,
Period.
period.
An annual independent audit of all town accounts. The word annual would be added, and then when necessary or as directed at the annual town meeting would be deleted.
Such audit shall be made by a certified public accountant or firm of accountants having no direct or indirect personal interest in the fiscal affairs of the town.
Yeah,
Or any of
that would
Or
remain.
any of its
Yeah.
officers.
Yeah, that just clears it up. Then we don't have to have is it annual town meeting or anything.
Yes.
It makes it straightforward.
Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Can you repeat it?
So,
The
the
select
word,
board.
go
Want me
ahead,
to read
go
it?
ahead.
The select board shall provide for an annual independent audit of all town accounts. Such audit shall be made by a certified public accountant or a firm of accountants. That the end remains the same.
Yeah, I mean, if we're not varying from statute, I don't know that we need it in here at all, but it's always what I'm gonna say.
But I thought you were saying the statute doesn't require an independent audit. It just requires an audit.
We want to make sure it's an independent audit.
When this first popped up, you expressed a concern about the statute not
Because I thought
requiring that
this
it be
was
an outside
addressing
auditor.
something different.
Sorry?
I thought this was addressing something different, but if you're just turning it into the annual audit, that's already happening.
And I think so.
We're turning it into the annual audit. What's happened? Sorry? I'm not following you.
This seems to be an additional audit. This is not the annual audit.
No, we just said an annual independent audit.
What is current practice? The audit that is included in an annual report.
It's done annually following the close of a fiscal year. And so between the close of the fiscal year on June 30 and the publication of the town report the next February, an independent outside auditor, a CPA, conducts the audit, and that gets put into the town report.
I think the question is this audit that audit? And is that audit in states required under state statute? Isn't that sort of where we're following? Because this,
The first question I think needs answered, is that the audit that's in the annual report? Because an audit is required by state statute. What
Audit is not actually required by state statute. The town can vote to have an annual audit.
right, so if it's not required by state statute, then we need to put it in
We
the
should put
chart.
But I don't think we should use, I think we should just say an annual financial audit because
The
that's what the
independent
statute says.
is strange. The independent is a qualifier.
But an independent, no, because you can audit your own books.
It's an important qualifier,
Right.
right?
You don't want-
the finance director conducting the audit.
It needs to be an independent, like now it has to be an
So
independent.
then what if the section reads annual audit and then within says
Sure.
the select board shall provide an independent audit? So
Love that.
just,
Love that. I think we should still have the word annual in the sentence so that the sentence stands alone, but I like the idea of changing independent audit to annual audit for the header. That's good.
That annual. Well, I know that the town gets federal money. And
That's a whole different thing. If in a given year, when you get enough federal money, there's something called a single audit, which is really lousy nomenclature because it's not actually a single thing that
I know.
includes everything.
I had
It speaks to the federal stuff alone.
usually the same auditor as.
So we're gonna change the headline to annual audit. And then is it gonna say the select board shall provide for an annual independent
Independent
audit of all town
Yep.
account, period, such audit shall be made, blah, blah,
Yep.
blah, blah, blah.
Perfect.
making triple sure there's not another reference that somebody has an activity towards the audit.
There, where's the part where it says they contract with the accountants? That's in here somewhere, isn't it?
I think it's in the select board.
Yeah.
Portion. That's right. Probably under appointments.
It's not on the appointment.
It's not
That's
there.
why I'm asking if it knows where it is.
Oh,
I think it is, no, it is D, it's under appointments D. The select board shall contract with a certified public accountant licensed in Vermont to perform an annual financial audit of all town funds as required by law.
So that's why I think we should just use the term annual financial audit as required by law, because that's what they're contracting the account.
Or take this out entirely, that the select board shall appoint somebody to do that task.
And we don't have to reference law because
Right.
law,
So which one are we taking out? The appointment part or this other part?
This,
part.
yeah, I'm thinking the independent audit part, but read again the appointment section, please.
The select board shall contract with a certified public accountant licensed in Vermont to perform an annual financial audit of all town funds as required by law.
That's better language than this.
Let's just take that whole thing out.
Take all of section 8 out.
but are you satisfied with the independent?
That language is fine. It doesn't use the word independent, but the language it uses accomplishes the same thing in a better way. It's much more specific.
Certified public accountant.
Certified public accountant licensed in Vermont is really good language, better language than what appears here.
Is that okay based on the full section then of this is under finances? That nothing is mentioned about.
I don't think it needs to be mentioned.
I don't think it does either because it's covered in that other spot. The thing we could do, but we've decided in other cases not to do, is have a one-liner that refers to how it's covered elsewhere, but it's covered elsewhere. I think we're okay. Between that and the statutory responsibility to do something annually, and then that language says, we're going to do it this way. We're not going to do it ourselves. We're not going to, appoint somebody who's not a CPA. I think that's fine. That's good, actually, more efficient.
Library.
Thing. My one question is, I wasn't gonna say anything, but now that we're changing everything, what the heck? You guys can disagree with me on that, but on C vacancies under board of trustees, vacancies on the board of library trustees shall be filled by the select board upon recommendation of the library trustees.
Mhm.
I think it should just say vacancies on the board shall be filled by the select board. Shouldn't anyone get, like, why are we having the board of trustees recommend the vacancy?
I'm not opposed to making the change that you're suggesting. I think the reason it's there is because historically the trustees did make recommendations to town meeting, may have also made them for vacancies to the select board, but definitely did make them as part of the town meeting election process.
Right, but they did, but this makes it sound like the only people that can be considered are the people that the library board recommends. And actually.
Yeah, actually, that's true. It does sound like that.
And if you go back up to what's now A under section 2,
Mhm.
it used to say the 3 trustees shall be appointed by the select board. Then it goes elected each year by the annual representative town meeting from among persons
Yep.
nominated by the select board and by the trustees and from the floor.
Yeah.
So I think it just has to be vacancies will be filled by the
Totally
by
agree.
the select board.
I think that's right.
I think it should be open. I will acknowledge, I feel like this stigma or whatever is that the trustees appoint
Right.
who,
Yeah.
because, and based on the last RTM, when
Yeah.
someone was going to be nominated from the floor, that was
Right.
a thing. So a moment. So
So I-
I'm happy to have it reflect what it should be.
Good.
Okay. I wasn't gonna bring it up, but then we're gonna do it on other stuff. And then we go to the charter. We got rid of those other things. And then just gonna read this under 2, by recommendation of the Charter Review Commission created pursuant to this charter. Any recommendations approved by the Charter Review Commission shall be voted upon at a special town meeting with votes subject to the rights of referendum set forth herein. The special town meeting shall be preceded by a public meeting, blah, blah, blah.
So, the rights of referendum language suggests that this would be the open meeting at which the thing would get considered at the open meeting and then could be reconsidered by referendum.
Well, I think we talked about this last week, that we wanted this to also be able to go on a ballot because it has to go on a ballot if you do it in the statute petition. And so we left it as the either or option. So it's the right of referendum as set forth herein. So you can only get a referendum if it goes to an open meeting.
No,
Yeah, I think that's isn't that what you're saying? That this should
no,
be-
what I'm
this
saying
should
is
be
that,
Open meeting?
yeah, or that we should take the rights of referendum language out, because if it goes to an open meeting, the rights of referendum in the other part of the charter already speak to that, to actions that get taken at an open meeting are subject to referendum. So if we mean for this to be either or, I'm okay with that. But then we should take out with votes subject to the rights of referendum set forth within.
We just said that's a double bite at the apple, the referendum. If
it goes to Australian ballot, right.
It's a
But
second
you
bite.
wouldn't
at
get
the
those
apple.
rights if you went to Australian ballot.
This says you would.
No, as set forth herein. You only get that right if it's by ballot.
Okay.
If it's not by ballot.
Okay, fine. And we've decided like 30 times not to reference something this way. If it's dealt with elsewhere, it's dealt with elsewhere.
So how is it gonna read now, Peter?
It's going to end after special town meeting. It's going to say any recommendations approved by the Charter Review Commission created. That's kind of weird. I think maybe the word created needs to come out too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we delete created. So any recommendations approved by the Charter Review Commission shall be voted upon at a special town meeting, period. And with votes subject to the rights of referendum set forth herein would be deleted. And lest anyone believe we're taking away or trying to take away rights that belong to the people. We're actually not. It's just that those rights are already stated very clearly elsewhere.
Are we okay with that? Then basically,
There's nothing after.
everything is gone.
We've taken this from an 18-page charter to a 9-page charter.
8,
18.
18 to 8 to 9.
Okay, so can we just like go have a rehash of the plan moving forward so we're all on the same page? In order, so we're gonna present our charter today,
Work in progress.
work in progress, on September 9th. So Peter and I will work on the very abbreviated memo. Now, Hannah, when do you think we can get the new, like, we haven't done a lot of changes, have we, this new? I don't, like, we need the marked up version and then the clean version with something that says Charter Revision Commission.
Working
Working
draft.
draft. So I can tell Jessica when it's all coming, so I can have the memo and everything all at once.
Probably by I can have it done by the end of the day on Monday so that it's ready for the next business week.
Okay, cool, that's great.
Both pieces.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
And if he could help you, I would say I'd help you, but I know I push a button and then all your work is over.
I'd like to make an excessively picky suggestion. I'm sorry for this, but building on what you said, Kate, I think this thing about labeling it as a working draft is really important. I think it's also important that it not resemble as much as we've been causing it to resemble the actual approved charters. So that if the first page is just
Suggestion would be that we take out both first page and the table of contents
sure,
because
for now, just show them the substance. I think that's great.
You're not gonna, no one's gonna.
Then you don't even have to put a working draft thing on it. You're just going to do the draft watermark.
like Charter Commission recommended
Totally.
edits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the
Nope, that's great.
Yeah.
It's just,
Say
Just the-
right. Oh,
what's that?
I like the working draft.
Yeah, but it's gonna, each page is gonna have a draft watermark on it, and Kate's gonna call it a working draft in her memo. I like the idea. It reinforces visually the unfinished nature of it if it doesn't have a cover page and table of contents.
Oh, I agree with that part.
So I think that's where we should land.
And you'll just put draft on every page.
Yeah.
I still think
I don't know that I'll see how it looks, but the reason I haven't been putting it on the marked up version is because it's already pretty busy.
yeah.
That's why I put on the clean version to make it clear that that was a draft.
I see,
Yeah.
because the strike out and underline makes
The
that
header
clear.
or something, but the full watermark might look really busy
Okay.
with all the markup.
Fair enough. Yeah, if you do think you can use a header on it, I think that'd be helpful. I think just so nothing gets taken out of context, having a draft on each page would be helpful.
And is there a way to date it? Because as Maya and I know, it gets really confusing. So is there a way to go working draft or whatever, August 28th?
I've been saving the file every week as a new file with a new date.
Yeah. Can it be on the?
Yeah, I
somewhere?
can just do a cover page that says draft.
That would be
date,
great.
Whatever.
Because if somebody has the printed version, they don't know when the draft is. Do you know what I mean? And we're gonna be giving that. I think that's important too. So there's-
It'll be as of today.
No, it's not that.
No, the working draft.
Yeah, as long as it can go like.
But it's not a working draft. It's a working draft as of Tuesday.
Right, whatever the
Oh,
date
you're
is.
right.
But as long as we can do that on the actual documents, when the select board has it, it has it, because I have to write it on the thing.
Yeah, I write it on all my.
Yeah.
And it will look really bad if I have to write it and then it'll be so pretty that it's got all these nice colors and it's my getting scratch. Okay, so we'll get that done and then we'll meet on September 18th. Now, well, everybody will see each other on September 9th. And when we know where we are on the agenda, because we won't know the agenda till Friday
Right.
coming up, a week from tomorrow. Yeah, a week
Right.
from tomorrow. Then we'll,
Yeah. And then we meet on the 18th and see where we are and see where we think we go.
Yeah.
From there.
so we'll hopefully they'll take pity on us and put us in the front of the agenda as opposed to waiting and saying, you guys all have to sit around until.
They're gonna have a long agenda ahead.
The finance committee is supposed to appear on the 9th as well.
And us too.
Oh, so you guys might be
So, you know, I have no idea what the agenda setting committee is going to do. So once we look at the agenda, we could suggest to one or more select persons to alter the agenda, because as important as what the finance committee has to do with the select board, this is bigger.
That's thoughtful of you, and I think they themselves might have to wrestle with, are we trying to do too much in one night? So we'll see how it comes out. Once the chair and the vice chair have had an opportunity to look at the.
And once you've recognized us, I don't know how you guys do this stuff at 8:30 at night and not screw up terribly. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Is there anybody on Zoom that wants to say anything?
They're all asleep.
I know there's gonna come a time when we actually are finished. It's actually reassuring to me, based on the things we noted tonight, a little of this and a little of that, even tonight, it's reassuring to me that we're not rushing to an arbitrary date of we have to hand it off, we're finished, but we're gonna really make sure we're finished before we're finished. I think that's good.
But we're really like this close.
What's that?
We're like this close.
Yeah, we're getting very, very close. And there were a few substantive things that people noticed tonight, and then we talked about them and we landed in a new place.
Yeah.
And we have to see what
Yep.
they do
What
with
comes.
the other two.
Hey, do we want to adjourn and eat it? And everybody has to have a cupcake.
Or adjourn.
All right. All in favor of adjourning? Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.